so I think like we all have this collective mental health issue. Again, for a disease we don't have a name for yet. It could be like, I don't have one, like it's not a good short name, but like being afraid of the future or don't feeling at home in the world anymore. So the outcome is though that we become extremely tribal because we try to find like refuge or like a home or like stability in a world of permanent instability. And it's not going to change. I mean, the world in 15 years or 10 years will be so different, meaning never ever we have a change which was happening so quickly. So we resort in this tribalism, which practically makes also now coming back to COVID, every rational discussion obsolete, meaning we completely lost the ability, I think, to be in the middle of something.
I'm Dave Rubin, and we're mixing it up a bit today. We're going to shift from politics. Hallelujah. We're going to be talking about crypto, about longevity, and of course, about magic mushrooms. Joining me is the founder of Apeiron Investment Group, a board member of the Hayek Institute, and the founder of the Angermayer Policy and Innovation Forum, Christian Angermayer. Welcome to the Rubin Report.
Hi, Dave. Pleasure to be here.
It's good to be with you. You know, you were one of like 10 people that I would occasionally check in with in the last year and a half to make some sense of the world and talk about COVID and lockdowns and science and fact and all that stuff. So I'm going to just start you broadly here. Where are we at in the world right now? Where are we?
Well, let's start there. I'm vaccinated, so I'm pro-vaccination. It seems still to be a big debate in the US. Always when I post something, I get a lot of hate and love and whatever. But in generally, like if we discussed it before, like if we take it one level higher, one of my ideas is, or my views is that sort of the whole world is kind of going into or is already in a mental health crisis, meaning it's really in a mental health crisis in terms of really like what we at the moment define as mental health crisis, like depression, anxiety, addiction. So all of opioid addiction, like all of these numbers are skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. But I think we have way more issues we as a sort of planet or humanity is going through mentally, which we have not defined yet as a real disease. So if you talk to so many people, they feel literally, they can't even express it because there is no word for it. Somehow I think the majority of people feels that the world is going in a direction which A, doesn't make sense for them, so they can't understand a lot of things anymore, and B, they subconsciously, and that's even worse, know there might be no place for them in the world, let's say we the tech elite is building. So I'm always, when I have these literally, every time we do a new investment and I'm telling my friends, like we just did a investment in a brain-computer interface company. And so my vision is, and I'm super excited about it, that in 10 years, 15 years, all of us going to have brain implants, brain-computer implants. And then we can sort of do things like from telepathy to communicating without any device. Meaning the sky is the limit, what you can do if our brain is directly linked to a computer. I think it's fascinating. And always when I talk to friends of mine, I realize how deeply terrifying that is for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just one example. So what I'm thinking is, and I'm coming back why I'm saying that in terms of COVID. So I'm thinking like, again, the world, it makes less and less sense for people. At the same time, they don't feel sort of at home, or they see they don't have a place, and that frightens them. Yeah, and fear, unfortunately, brings out the worst in us. Yeah, so and fear and trauma is also one of the underlying root cases for mental health issues. So I think like we all have this collective mental health issue. Again, for a disease we don't have a name for yet. It could be like, I don't have one, like it's not a good short name, but like being afraid of the future or don't feeling at home in the world anymore. So the outcome is though that we become extremely tribal, because we try to find like refuge or like a home or like stability in a world of permanent instability. And it's not going to change. I mean, the world in 15 years or 10 years will be so different, meaning never ever we have a change which was happening so quickly. So we resort in this tribalism, which practically makes also now coming back to COVID, every rational discussion obsolete, meaning we completely lost the ability, I think, to be in the middle of something. Like it's always like in here, when we had all these discussions, like both sides, like in America, the Republicans or the right wing, the left wing, like, yeah, it's insane. And I think there is a more underlying reason, which is the one I just described.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to have you on, because I've been talking about on the show for a while that it seems like we're at the end of one world and there's a new world on the horizon, but people are worried about it. We know about all the mental health stuff. But you were kind of in the psychedelic game before all of this was happening. Like you've been thinking about how do we make people happier and less depressed and with less anxiety and all that stuff for quite some time. When did you get interested in that?
I got interested, I can tell you exactly, in 2014 when I had my first own magic mushroom trip, which was in a country where it's legal. Which was
which country was that?
I always have to say the disclaimer.
Was that Holland? Where was that? Which country was that? That was Holland?
No, it was actually on a tiny island. It's called Canwan in the Caribbean.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's legal or not classified in most countries in the Caribbean, Latin America, and actually in the Netherlands. Like that's the interesting part. And by the way, because I come to this in a point that I think psychedelics should be taken in a medical context, or at least with a guide. So I had a very good shaman doing it with me. But like, just for the ones who are watching now and saying, Jesus, he's a druggie, like, I always was extremely comfortable to talk about it because I am the least druggy person you would ever met. Like, I have never drank alcohol ever in my whole life. I have never smoked a cigarette, never smoked a joint. Actually, never did anything else. Like I drank coffee when I was 28 for the first time. And
Christian, coffee. Oh.
Now I love coffee is okay now. But what I want to say, so I came very virgin to that whole thing. And then it was hands down the single most meaningful and important and life enriching thing I've ever done in my whole life, full stop. Nothing really comes close. And I have to say, I was already a very happy person. Yeah. So, and immediately after that, I was like, okay, if it can do this to me, a happy person, I can totally see why in the 50s, this was, and 60s, actually some psychedelics were already legal in a medical setting against depression, whatever. But back then, depression was not a big thing. So I was like, it must be that I was very sure actually people would work on it now because this was so powerful. And then actually for 2 years I was looking around, are there any companies I can invest in? There weren't. And then I did it myself.
Right. So what's that like when you're like, all right, I'm going to be the magic mushroom guy? And I should tell you, I've done magic mushrooms many times and it's been a while, but I've always loved doing it. I never had a bad effect. I wasn't depressed after anything. If anything, it's exactly what you're saying. It sort of elevates the good stuff. But sort of what I think is interesting about you also is that you're basically, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, you're basically politically a conservative. And I think it's kind of, there's like this dichotomy between, wait a minute, he's a conservative, but also he's the magic mushroom guy. I sort of say that's what the new sort of conservative thing is. So can you talk a little bit about that and then how you went ahead and said, okay, we're going to make this into a business?
All right. So first of all, totally fine. Conservative. I actually would say I'm rational, and and it's like, I think one of the big problems is already that I think we're still using terms which don't fit in our time anymore. There should be no left and right because left and right, I always tell my friends who are like in Germany and the Social Democrats are like, I tell my friends, look, you should have come home in the 80s because you won.
Yeah.
If 100 years back, there were real issues for the working class. Yeah. So then somewhen you reached everything. You should have reinvented yourself. Funnily, but that's another topic. Actually, there would be a place for real social in a positive, I know socialists in English always have these negative, we call it social democrats, like center socialist, because I think never ever then in the last 60 years than today, the working class has a real issue because their jobs going to vanish, all of them, 100%.
Yeah, this is what Tucker's always talking about.
If I were a lefty politician, I would take that as my thing. How can I help the real working class? How can we create, and this comes back to my worry about the mental health state, we have to create a world where we all have a place. Because let me take one analogy, which is not a nice one, but to sort of paint a negative picture, because we had all of that, like 100. So I love history, like, and I searched for like a time which is sort of similar to ours. I know history never repeats, but rhymes, but if you go in the time 1850 to 1910, 1915, there are so many parallels. The elites were completely tech savvy. You had Jules Verne, the author. He was writing actually about going to the moon, about flying to the stars, about going undersea. You had people forget that it was the time of the World Fair in Paris. Actually, this was the Eiffel Tower was built as a symbol of technological innovation. So there was the biggest elevator in the Eiffel Tower. You had all these amazing books writing about actually future like fantasy, but it became real. Like actually, anyway. So you had this enormous optimism. You had Berlin, by the way, being an incredibly liberal city, like gay rights, like party, like the elite was in a collective happiness.
Yeah.
But 95% of the people were most likely thinking you're fucking crazy because they were all farmers. Yeah. And it was the dawn. So we were moving from an agrarian culture or agrarian society into the industrial age. This was the evening, or the eve of the industrial age. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, in that industrial age, a lot of the people who were needed in the agrarian age were redundant.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about tech instead of nonstop yelling, check out our tech playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.